The Instagram post stared back at me from my phone screen, mocking me with its perfect composition. My entire family, father, mother, brother, sister-in-law, even my niece and nephew, all raising wine glasses against the backdrop of a medieval French chateau. The caption burned into my retinas. The perfect family vacation without her. Posted 3 hours ago. 3 hours ago, I was standing alone in my wedding dress, watching the empty rows where my family should have been. My trembling fingers scrolled to the comments. Dad, she's too busy anyway, with a laughing emoji. Mom, it's wonderful to escape from being stressed by her wedding. My throat tightened as I scrolled through more photos. Vineyard tours, river cruises, family portraits, all meticulously time-stamped and geotagged at a show I'd never even heard of. I can't believe they would do this, James said, his voice tight with anger as he sat beside me on our new couch in our new home on what should have been the happiest day of our lives. I didn't cry. Lawyers don't cry, especially not Eliza Harper, who had built her career on never showing weakness. Instead, I took a sip of champagne and felt something crystallize inside me, something cold and sharp and final. What do you think we should do now? I asked James, my new husband of exactly 8 hours. His eyes held a calculated look I'd never seen before. First, let's prepare to protect yourself legally. Then, when the time comes, we'll show them the truth. I had no idea what he meant by that, or how deeply our lives were already intertwined with my family's in ways I couldn't imagine. But in that moment, as I stared at the evidence of their betrayal, I knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just about a missed wedding. This was about years of invisibility, of being valued only for my wallet. And it was about to end. Flashback, family dinner. Oh, Eliza, you're unusually early today, my mother Diana said with a stiff smile when I walked into our family home 2 months ago. Is work finished? The conversation in the living room had halted abruptly upon my entrance. My brother Benjamin exchanged meaningful glances with his wife Camilla, while my father Victor didn't even look up from his newspaper. I let out a small sigh. Yes, I finished early today. I wanted to have dinner at home. My father snorted. All a miracle our lawyer deigns to look up from her law books. I felt that familiar tightness in my chest, a sensation I'd known since childhood. Being the eldest daughter in the Harper family meant being the responsible one, the serious one, the one who was expected to succeed and support everyone else while somehow also being criticized for exactly those qualities. Dad, I began, but Benjamin interrupted. Eliza, tell me about your meeting this morning. Did you sue another company? He turned to his wife with an exaggerated eye roll. Eliza only talks about numbers. She has a special talent for ruining the mood at parties. Camilla laughed softly. That's right. At the last holiday party, she went on and on about contract clauses. Half of the guests left. I was just. The words died in my throat. What was the point? I'd been having this same conversation with my family for 15 years, ever since I chose law school over the family business. My father had never forgiven me for not following his path, even though the monthly checks I sent had been keeping them afloat for years. They should have known that I was helping with their living expenses. But in their eyes, I was just the boring, serious eldest daughter who'd forgotten how to smile. That night as I was leaving, my father called out to me. By the way, about the cost of Benjamin's birthday party next month, you'll help out a bit, won't you? I nodded quietly. My relationship with my family was always like this. My value of existence was proportional to the thickness of my wallet. Flashback, the engagement. They're going to love you, I assured James as we drove to my parents' house 6 months ago to announce our engagement. My mom might be a bit formal at first, but she'll warm up. James squeezed my hand. It doesn't matter if they love me. I love you. I remember looking at his profile then, wondering how I'd gotten so lucky. James Ryan was everything I'd never thought I'd find. Intelligent, kind, successful, and most importantly, he saw me, really saw me. Not as a walking ATM or a boring lawyer, but as Eliza. We'd met at a corporate law conference where he was speaking about ethical leadership. I'd been impressed by his clarity of thought, his unwavering principles. Coming from a family where money disappeared into mysterious investments and opportunities, that never materialized. James' financial responsibility and transparency felt like solid ground beneath my feet. Just so you know, I said hesitantly, they might ask about money. My family has expectations. James's expression didn't change. I understand family dynamics better than most people think, he said cryptically. At the time, I didn't ask what he meant. The dinner was a disaster. My father spent the entire evening talking about his company's expansion plans, barely acknowledging James except to ask leading questions about his connections. My mother kept steering the conversation toward the wedding budget. Benjamin and Camilla arrived late, left early, and spent the intervening time showing vacation photos on their phones. James was perfectly polite, but I felt his quiet assessment of everything. On the drive home, he said only one thing: "They don't deserve you, Eliza." I should have listened more carefully to the steel in his voice. Flashback wedding preparations. I'm planning to have a family dinner to introduce my fiancé properly. You absolutely have to come, Dad, I insisted over the phone a month before the wedding. Of course, Eliza, my father answered smoothly. I'll definitely come if work finishes early. The strange thing was, my father Victor had begun acting different whenever conversations about my upcoming wedding came up. He wasn't acting strange in a bad way, but he was certainly secretive in a suspicious way, whispering on the phone, closing his laptop when I walked into his office. My sister-in-law Camilla started giving me these little smiles and saying things like, "Eliza, you're going to love what we're planning for your big day." Even my brother Benjamin, who was usually too absorbed in his investment banking work to care about family stuff, was dropping hints. I'm not going to lie, it got me excited. Your wedding is supposed to be a milestone, right? My family wasn't wealthy, and I was independent, so I wasn't expecting anything extravagant. But all the secrecy had me thinking maybe they were planning an amazing bridal shower or rehearsal dinner. On the promised day for our family dinner, he sent me a message. "I'm sorry, but I forgot I had a golf appointment with my friend Bob. Let's meet on the wedding day." I sighed. This wasn't the first time. My father always prioritized his work and hobbies over important events in my life. The dinner with James got canceled, but I still held on to hope for the wedding day. The wedding day, I stood there in my dress, holding my bouquet, staring at the empty rows where my family should have been. Mom, Dad, Benjamin, Camilla, Adrian, and Sophia, none of them had come. Something might have happened, I thought, and called my father on my cell phone. It got rejected. The same thing happened when I called my mother. I sent texts to Benjamin and Camilla, but there was no reply. James squeezed my hand. His calm eyes reassured me. "Eliza, don't worry, something must have happened. They wouldn't intentionally not come." James' suit was tailor-made, and his gentle smile was just for me. His parents looked concerned, but James was decisive, and we proceeded with the ceremony as planned. Feeling the absence of my family, I said, "I do," in front of the empty rows. James' hand firmly held mine, and the look in his eyes told me that I was enough, even without my family. Later, as we returned to our new home, I remembered I actually have an Instagram account. I don't post much. I just follow my family members' accounts to check on their lives sometimes. And there it was, posted 3 hours earlier. The aftermath at home. "Let's prepare to protect yourself legally," James had said after we discovered the Instagram posts. I didn't fully understand what he meant until the next morning. I was still in bed, just waking up from the previous day's fatigue, when I heard James' voice from the living room. His tone was different from usual, businesslike and calm, yet it had an unwavering strength. "Yes, Victor," James said, "the decision remains unchanged. From Monday, you will be transferred to the regional branch. Your future will be considered based on your performance there." I was fully awake the moment I heard him say my father's name. I jumped out of bed and headed to the living room to see James holding the phone with a serious expression. He saw me, gave a small nod, and continued the call. "No, this is not personal. It's purely a matter of performance and compliance," he said calmly. "Your department has failed to meet targets for 3 consecutive quarters. Furthermore, there have been violations of the company's ethics code." The voice from the phone grew louder. It sounded like my father was shouting. James remained calm and switched the phone to speaker mode. You don't have the authority, my father's voice echoed throughout the room. I've supported this company for 20 years. You're just a. James calmly interrupted. I was officially appointed as the CEO 3 months ago. All personnel decisions are within my authority. After a moment of silence, my father's voice changed. This time it was mixed with fear. Wait, James. There must be some misunderstanding. I was just. You skipped a family wedding to go on a European vacation, James said sternly. Our company upholds the value of cherishing family. You failed to uphold even that basic principle. Wedding? My father's voice sounded confused. What wedding? James looked at me, his expression softening slightly. Eliza's wedding. Your daughter's. On the other end of the phone, something fell. Then my mother's voice was heard from a distance. Victor, what happened? Eliza's wedding? Why would? I am James Ryan, your superior and your son-in-law. Complete silence followed. Then frantic voices were heard from the phone. My father was hurriedly explaining something to my mother. Benjamin's voice could also be heard in the background. They were clearly agitated. But, my father returned to the phone, his voice trembling. Why didn't anyone tell me that Eliza and you? I didn't know. We sent the invitations 3 months ago. I spoke for the first time. There was no response. I also called Mom to confirm, but was told you were busy. Eliza, my father gasped. You were there. Listen, this is all a misunderstanding. We were just on vacation. I didn't know your fiancé was James or that he was my boss. Benjamin's voice cut in. James, Eliza, listen. We learned in Europe that Dad was being demoted. Everyone was upset, and we tried to contact you, but you canceled my wedding, I said in an icy voice. You didn't think about the most important event in my life at all. Eliza, my mother started speaking. We were just. Enough, James said before hanging up. Victor, I expect a report from the regional branch on Monday. When the call ended, I buried my face in my knees. James sat beside me and put his arm around my shoulders. Honestly, I didn't think your father wouldn't recognize me, James said softly. He had met me in board meetings and should have known I was a member of the management team. I guess he really didn't consider you in his life at all. His words pierced my heart. My father couldn't even remember my fiancé's face. The confrontation. 3 hours later, our smartphones kept ringing, 290 desperate messages from my father, mother, Benjamin, and Camilla. They suddenly realized my importance because my husband had the power to affect their livelihood. What are you going to do? James asked, gently stroking my shoulder. I'll ignore them, I said with determination. Just as they ignored my wedding, I'll ignore their messages. That evening, we built my legal protection strategy. I called my bank and removed my family members' access to my accounts. Around midnight, I discovered an email thread between Dad and Benjamin from 2 weeks earlier. Dad, should we even tell Eliza about the France trip? Benjamin, why bother? She'll just worry about her wedding. Dad, true lol, it's not like she ever focuses on anything but legal matters anyway. Benjamin, she probably won't notice we're gone until after her wedding. Dad, I think you're right lol. That was the moment something inside me crystallized. I'd been holding on to a tiny hope that maybe everything was just a big misunderstanding, but that email destroyed it. On the day they were supposed to return, I was waiting in my apartment. James said he had work and promised to join me in the evening. At 4:32 p.m., I heard multiple voices in the elevator of my building. The wheels of suitcases rolled on marble, and the intercom rang. When I opened the door, there was an unnatural scene of jet lag, exhausted faces forcing cheerful smiles. My father was clutching a gift bag that had obviously not been in his original luggage. Eliza, my father said in a forcefully bright voice. Why didn't you answer the phone? I wanted to ask you about my job. I stared at them with a cold expression. My mother looked apologetic, and Camilla was staring at the floor. Only Benjamin hadn't completely abandoned his somewhat arrogant attitude. As a tense conversation began at the doorway, the elevator doors opened again, and James appeared wearing a suit. His expression was stern when he saw my father. Victor, he said calmly. My father's face drained of color. James, he choked. Is it true what was written in that email? Are you together? James stood next to me and put his arm around my shoulder. Victor, I am Eliza's husband. The wedding was 4 days ago. You were invited, but it seems you prioritized your vacation in France. My father's face twisted with fear and confusion. Eliza, is he? Is he really my company's CEO? Yes, he is, I said calmly. But you know what? You chose traveling over my wedding, and now you've come to complain about James demoting you. Benjamin stepped forward. Eliza, listen, we didn't know your fiancé was actually Dad's boss otherwise. That has to be a blatant lie, I said firmly. James' promotion was decided last month. His name was circulating in company emails. The reason you know nothing about my fiancé is because you have no interest in my life. My father said in a trembling voice, Eliza, we're family. Family helps each other, right? James calmly said, Victor, someone who doesn't value family has no right to talk about family. As those words echoed in the hallway, complete silence fell. My father's shoulders slumped, and despair spread across his face. My mother covered her mouth with her hand, letting out an uncontrollable sob. Even Benjamin lost his usual arrogance and dropped his gaze to the floor. I notified you when you were in France last week, James continued calmly. Employees who don't value family are not needed in the company. You are to be demoted to a rural subsidiary. It was only after you received that notice that you suddenly started to care about your daughter's wedding. Camilla said in a small voice, We didn't know. Victor suddenly said they had to go back. James looked at her, his expression softening slightly. Please leave now. Eliza has been hurt enough. My father took a step back and dropped the gift bag. Its contents scattered on the floor, but no one tried to pick them up. My crying mother grabbed my father's arm and pulled him toward the elevator. Eliza, Benjamin said finally, can I talk? Get out, I said quietly but firmly. They slumped their shoulders and hung their heads as they entered the elevator. The last scene visible through the closing doors was my father's devastated expression and my mother's tear-soaked face. Benjamin was supporting Camilla, who was crying like a child. When the door closed, James gently embraced me. Are you okay? He asked kindly. I'm fine, I answered. I'm no longer an invisible presence. That's all I need. Looking out the window, I could see them walking through the lobby with heavy steps toward a taxi. My father no longer looked arrogant. He just looked like an old man. Watching them get into the taxi and drive away in the rain, I felt true freedom for the first time. Epilogue is 6 months later. 1 month after the wedding, their situation had visibly deteriorated. James and I were having coffee at the breakfast table, discussing my father's situation. On James' laptop was my father's performance report, and the numbers were harsh. He only lasted 2 weeks at the regional branch. James said quietly, he was late every day and even fell asleep in meetings. Yesterday, he formally submitted his resignation. I picked up my coffee cup and stared at the steam. As expected, James took my hand. Do you regret it? No. I shook my head. They made their choices. I just made mine. As we were preparing to go to work after breakfast, my new phone rang. It was my mother's number. After exchanging glances with James, I answered on speaker mode. Eliza, please listen. My mother's voice sounded tired and thin. Your father quit his job. We're financially struggling. We can't make our mortgage payments, and our credit card debt is growing. Could you help us a little? James silently looked at me, nodding slightly to indicate that he was leaving this decision to me. How much do you need? I asked calmly. About $3,000 this month, my mother said in a small voice. It's temporary. Your father will find a new job soon. I struggled to contain my laughter. $3,000. Almost exactly the same amount as their luxury hotel bill in France. Tell me honestly why you need the money, I said. I told you, mortgage, and the real reason. I interrupted her. What is father trying to do after James demoted him? After a long silence, my mother sighed. He has contacted a competitor. He's planning to sell confidential information from James' company. We need money for a lawyer. I could see James' expression hardening. He quickly began taking notes and gestured that he would contact the legal department. I see, was all I said. Mom, you just admitted to conspiracy in corporate espionage and industrial spying. This call is being recorded. Eliza, my mother gasped. How could you record a family conversation? How ironic, I said coldly. A family who chose traveling over my wedding is now bringing up family. That evening, James and I were drinking wine on the penthouse balcony, gazing at the city lights. He put his arm around my shoulder and pulled me close. What do you think? I asked. Do you think they'll give up? They have nothing left to lose, James said quietly. That's the most dangerous kind of person. 2 days later, I received a direct call from my father. Eliza, his voice was strangely calm. I need some financial assistance. It's temporary. I'll pay it back soon. James and I were listening on speakerphone again. He had already contacted a lawyer and started preparing a restraining order. How much do you need? I asked. $5,000, he said without hesitation. As family, as a daughter helping out, that much is only natural, right? I looked at James. He just shook his head. Dad, do you understand how dangerous the gamble you're taking is? I asked quietly. James took everything from me. He suddenly shouted. My position, my dignity, even my daughter. He should be punished. Your problem has always been that you're self-centered, I said. I am not a thing, not a possession to be taken. I made my own choices. Did you know he was the CEO? My father said in a trembling voice. Did you marry him knowing he was my boss? I married him knowing who he is, I answered, because he is kind, honest, and respects me, things you never showed me. The phone went silent and was then disconnected. The next morning, the news was shocking. My father had been arrested for compliance violations and attempted sale of corporate secrets. According to a report from company security, my mother and Camilla were crying at home. What should I have done? I asked James. I could have stopped them. James touched my cheek and said gently, Eliza, these were their choices, not your responsibility. That afternoon, I formally applied for a restraining order through my lawyer against my parents, Benjamin and Camilla. I couldn't let those who were destroying their own lives destroy mine as well. You forgot my existence, I wrote in my final email. Now it's my turn to forget yours. From that day, I created a new phone number, a new email address, and a new beginning. James supported me throughout the process, and at night, he held me in his arms and whispered, You're not alone. I am your family. 6 months later, we bought a new house, a beautiful house by the lake, away from the city's hustle and bustle. James successfully reorganized the company, and I was promoted to chief legal officer. The only traces of my former family were the occasional documents from the court. The demands for gifts from Adrian and Sophia were gone, and I was free. The family bonds were broken, but James and I were building a new family, a family where I was visible. Every night after dinner, James and I would drink wine and talk about future plans. Once a month, we would have dinner with James' parents and dream about our own family. Sometimes, his casual words gave me a sense of security I had never experienced before. You are my everything, Eliza. And for the first time in my life, I knew exactly what it meant to be someone's everything. The waves crashed against the shore as I watched my sister approach, her designer heels sinking into the sand with each furious step. Even from this distance, I could see the mascara streaks on her face behind those oversized Gucci sunglasses. You've ruined everything. Vivian screamed, her voice carrying across the private beach. Brian's left me. Do you have any idea what you've done? The resort developer beside me raised an eyebrow. Family? Sister, I replied calmly, feeling strangely detached as I observed the woman who had belittled me for the past 25 years. Could you excuse us for a moment, Sarah? As Sarah discreetly stepped away, I faced my older sister. At 52, Vivian Morrison still commanded attention, designer clothes, perfect blonde highlights, manicured nails, the image of success she cultivated our entire lives. But today, that image was crumbling before my eyes. This was supposed to be my house, Ellen, she said, gesturing wildly at the Hampton Beach property behind us. My perfect life. How could you do this to me? I looked at her, really looked at her, and felt something shift inside me. Not satisfaction at her pain, as I'd expected, but a strange sense of clarity. Is that really what you believe, Viv? That I did this to you? 25 years of being the practical sister, the sensible one, the one who settled for nursing instead of aiming higher. 25 years of quiet determination while she shone. 25 years of patience leading to this moment of reckoning. But now that it had arrived, I realized this wasn't the victory I'd imagined. How did we get here? When did success become a weapon between sisters? Flashback the 50th anniversary party, Ellen. You made it. My mother rushed forward as I entered my parents' suburban home, her silk dress swishing around her ankles. At 72, Martha Foster still moved with the grace of a much younger woman. Vivian's been asking where you were. I bet she has, I thought, smoothing down my simple navy dress. The familiar knot formed in my stomach, the one that had appeared at every family gathering since childhood. Traffic was terrible, Mom. Sorry, I'm late. The driveway had been lined with luxury cars, Vivian's pearl white Tesla commanding the prime spot nearest the door, of course. Inside, the house buzzed with celebration for my parents' 50th wedding anniversary. I spotted my father, Robert, holding court in the living room, his silver hair gleaming under the chandelier lights. At 76, he still stood straight and proud, especially when introducing his successful daughter to his golf buddies. When isn't she late? Vivian's voice carried across the room like a perfectly aimed arrow. My sister glided over, champagne in hand, looking every bit the successful real estate agent in her designer outfit. But I guess that's what happens when you're so essential. The way she said the word made it sound like a consolation prize. I forced a smile, the one I'd perfected over decades of these interactions. The hospital had an emergency. 3-car pileup on the interstate. Oh, right. Still doing that nursing thing. Vivian's perfectly manicured hand waved dismissively. Richard and I just closed on our 4th investment property this year. You should really think about your future, sis. Retirement will be here before you know it. Before I could respond, my father appeared. Vivian, sweetheart, tell everyone about that new development deal. I watched as she commanded the room's attention, something she perfected since childhood. My cousin Thomas caught my eye from across the room and gave me a sympathetic smile. At 45, he remained the only family member who seemed to see through the dynamics at play. Everyone. Vivian clinked her glass. I have an announcement. The room hushed. I grabbed a glass of wine from a passing tray, already knowing this wouldn't be good. Richard and I are looking at the most amazing vacation property in the Hamptons, she gushed. It's absolutely perfect. Private beach access, 6 bedrooms, infinity pool. She paused dramatically. Of course, not everyone can afford such investments. Ellen, didn't you mention you were having money troubles? The room went silent. I froze, wine glass halfway to my lips. I never said that, I managed. Oh, come on, Vivian pressed, her smile sharp. I saw those collection notices in your mailbox when I dropped by last month. No shame in admitting you're struggling. We can't all be successful. Heat crept up my neck as relatives shifted uncomfortably. My mother's face fell, and my father looked anywhere but at me. I'm doing fine, Vivian, I said quietly. Fine, sweetie? You live in a tiny apartment and take the bus. It's okay to admit you need help. That's what family's for. Her voice dripped with fake concern. Richard, her husband, laughed nervously. Viv, maybe we should. No, really, she continued. Ellen's always been the practical one. Some people just aren't meant for bigger things. That's when something inside me snapped. Not in a dramatic, visible way. Instead, it was like a quiet click, the sound of a lock turning, a plan falling into place. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and said nothing. Ellen, my mother ventured, concerned by my silence. Vivian's right, I said finally, my voice steady. Some people aren't meant for bigger things. They're meant for smarter things. My sister's smile faltered slightly. Excuse me, I said, pulling out my phone as it buzzed. Work emergency. As I stepped onto the back porch, I saw Michael's message. Everything's set. The papers are signed. I looked through the window at my family, at Vivian holding court, at my parents beaming at their successful daughter, at the relatives who'd watched this dynamic play out for years. My phone buzzed again. This time it was my real estate agent. Congratulations, the Hampton house is yours. Flashback 25 years earlier, nursing school? Really, Ellen? My father's disappointment was palpable across the dinner table. I was 23, fresh out of college with a biology degree and acceptance letters to both nursing school and medical school. Dad, it's what I want to do. But you got into Johns Hopkins for medical school, he pressed, forking a piece of roast beef with unnecessary force. Why would you settle for nursing when you could be a doctor? Vivian, already 3 years into her real estate career and engaged to Richard, a promising investment advisor, smiled smugly. Not everyone has what it takes for medical school, Dad. Ellen's always been more practical. I remember the way she said practical, like it was a character flaw. Like choosing a career I was passionate about instead of one with more prestige was a failure of ambition. I'm not settling, I said, though no one seemed to hear me. I want to work directly with patients, to be there through their entire care journey. Sweetheart, my mother interjected. We just want what's best for you. Doctors make so much more money, and with that student debt. I've got a full scholarship for nursing, I replied. And the hospital is offering loan forgiveness for the rest if I work there for 5 years. Sensible, Vivian said, examining her new engagement ring in the dining room light. Playing it safe as usual. I watched my sister shine across the table, the golden child, while I faded into the background. It was a position I'd occupied since childhood. Vivian was the outgoing one, the ambitious one, the one who would make something of herself. I was the cautious one, the studious one, the one who needed to be more like her sister. What none of them realized was that my choice wasn't about playing it safe. It was about following my heart, about choosing a path that called to me. That night, as my parents continued to extol Vivian's latest commission check, I made a quiet promise to myself. One day, they would see me, really see me, for who I was, not who they thought I should be. Hospital cafeteria present day. You're actually insane, Michael said, stirring his coffee as we sat in our usual corner of the hospital cafeteria. Like, actually certifiably insane, and I love it. 3 days had passed since my parents' anniversary party, and I was still riding the high of my secret purchase. 25 years of night shifts and living below my means had to pay off sometime, but the Hamptons house? That was next level petty. Michael leaned forward, grinning. At 50, with salt and pepper hair and laugh lines around his eyes, he'd been my closest friend since our first night shift together in the trauma unit. As the son of Korean immigrants who had sacrificed everything for his education, he understood better than most the complex dynamics of family expectations. Tell me everything, he urged. I pulled out my phone, showing him the listing photos, 6 bedrooms, private beach access, and the infinity pool Vivian wouldn't shut up about on Instagram. The same one she's been posting about for months. The very same. I swiped through more photos. Remember when I started picking up extra shifts 4 years ago? When Vivian told everyone at Christmas dinner that nursing was a backup career for people who couldn't hack medical school? Hard to forget, he replied. You worked doubles for 3 months straight. I nodded. That's when I started seriously investing. Every extra shift, every bonus, straight into my portfolio. While she was posting about her designer handbags, I was meeting with financial advisors and nobody knew. Why would they? Vivian made sure everyone saw me as the struggling little sister. It was the perfect cover. My phone buzzed, a text from Thomas. Viv's posting about the house again. You seeing this? I opened Instagram. There was Vivian, posed in front of the house during what must have been her viewing, caption reading, Dreams do come true. Can't wait to make this paradise ours. Blessed luxury real estate. Michael nearly choked on his coffee. She doesn't know. The seller's agent is keeping it quiet at your request. She thinks she's getting it. The paperwork's been filed. It's mine. She just doesn't know it yet. I felt a mixture of guilt and vindication wash over me. Is that terrible? Am I becoming just like her? Michael studied me for a moment. You're nothing like her, Ellen. You're not doing this to hurt her. You're doing it to finally be seen. But it will hurt her, I admitted. Part of me wants it to. The thought transported me back to my nursing school graduation, where Vivian had shown up late, talked through my student speaker address, then dominated the celebration dinner with news of her real estate license. When I'd mentioned graduating top of my class, she'd said, "That's cute, but let's talk about real achievements." 25 years of moments like that had hardened something inside me. But now, with revenge at my fingertips, I felt strangely hollow. Ellen. A sharp voice cut through our conversation. Dr. Williams hurried over. Multiple car pile up coming in. We need all hands. I grabbed my coffee. Back to reality. This is what actually matters. Not houses. Not revenge. Not family drama. Real life and death. Yet, as I hurried toward the emergency department, I couldn't help but picture Vivian's face when she discovered the truth. Would it finally be enough? Vivian's dinner party Saturday arrived with the weight of anticipation. I pulled up to Vivian's McMansion just as Thomas was getting out of his car. Perfect timing, he said, falling into step beside me. You ready for whatever this is? More ready than she is, I muttered, clutching my purse with its hidden envelope inside. Vivian's house was a shrine to her supposed success. All chrome and white surfaces, designer everything. Family photos lined the walls, carefully curated to show her best angles. Ellen. Richard greeted me with his usual warmth. At 54, he looked older than his years, stress lines etched deep around his eyes. Viv's in the kitchen. She's been cooking all day. She cooks now? Thomas whispered as we walked through. She orders in and transfers it to her own dishes, I whispered back. Always has. The kitchen was a flurry of activity. Vivian stood at the island arranging takeout containers' contents onto serving platters, while my mother helped empty bags from an upscale catering service, which were poorly hidden in the trash. Ellen, you came. Vivian's smile was bright, but didn't reach her eyes. I was just telling Mom about the amazing news. Can't wait to hear it, I said, accepting a glass of wine from Richard. Oh, you're going to love it. It's life-changing. She straightened a platter of what I recognized as the local bistro's signature appetizers. Like some people, I believe in growing and advancing. My mother shot me an apologetic look. The doorbell rang again. My father arrived with Michael, who I'd invited as moral support. Vivian's eyebrows raised slightly at his presence. Still hanging out with hospital people? She asked, her tone dripping with condescension. Still pretending you cook? I counted quietly, nodding toward the hidden takeout containers. Her eyes narrowed, but before she could respond, Richard called everyone to the dining room. Before we eat, Vivian announced, standing at the head of the table, I have amazing news to share. She gripped Richard's hand. As you know, we've been looking at the most gorgeous property in the Hamptons. I felt Michael squeeze my knee under the table. And after some very exclusive negotiations, she continued, we are absolutely thrilled to announce. Actually, Richard interrupted, checking his phone with a frown. Honey, I just got an email from our agent. Not now, sweetie. As I was saying, Viv, the house sold to someone else. The silence that followed was deafening. What? Vivian's voice was sharp. That's impossible. Check again. It sold 2 days ago. The agent says the new owner wants to remain anonymous for now. Vivian's face flushed red. But we had an agreement. We were going to announce. We had a viewing, Viv. We never made an offer. Because they promised to hold it for us. I took a slow sip of wine, watching my sister's perfect facade crack. Well, my father said, clearly trying to salvage the moment, there will be other properties, sweetheart. No. Vivian slammed her hand on the table, making the plates rattle. That was our house. My house. I already told everyone. She stopped, noticing my calm expression. Why aren't you more upset about this? Why would I be upset? Because you're supposed to be happy for me. You're supposed to be jealous. Thomas choked on his wine. Viv, Richard said softly, maybe we should take a minute. No. This was supposed to be perfect. I was going to show everyone. She trailed off, her carefully constructed image crumbling. Show everyone what? I asked, my voice steady. How successful you are. How much better? She caught herself, but not before our parents exchanged worried glances. Better than who, Vivian? She didn't answer, but her glare said everything. Dinner's getting cold, my mother interjected weakly. You know what's interesting? I said, reaching for my purse. Success isn't always about who shouts the loudest. What's that supposed to mean? It means. I pulled out my phone, pulling up the property photos. Sometimes the quiet ones surprise you. Ellen, Michael warned softly, but I was done being quiet. Remember when you told everyone I was probably going bankrupt? I slid my phone across the table. Funny thing about that, Vivian. Vivian grabbed the phone, her eyes widening as she scrolled through the familiar photos of her dream house. Her dream house with my name on the deed. This is a joke, she whispered. The closing papers arrived yesterday, I said, pulling the envelope from my purse. Would you like to see them? The room erupted in chaos. Richard was staring at me in disbelief. My father was demanding explanations, and my mother had her head in her hands. But all I could see was Vivian's face, the exact moment she realized her struggling little sister had beaten her at her own game. How? She managed finally. I stood up, smoothing my dress. Maybe we should talk about real achievements. Return to beach house confrontation, perfect life? I stepped closer to my sister on the beach, the waves crashing behind us. You mean the one you built on credit cards and lies? The one where you had to put everyone else down to feel superior? You did this to spite me. Tears streamed down Vivian's face, streaking her makeup further. Did I? Or did you just assume nobody else could achieve what you wanted to achieve? I thought back to each family gathering where she'd overshadowed me, each celebration of mine she'd hijacked, each dismissive comment about my career. 25 years of being the sensible sister, the one who would never amount to much. Remember my nursing school graduation? You showed up late, talked through my speech, then spent the entire dinner talking about your real estate license. When I mentioned I'd graduated top of my class, you said, that's cute, but let's talk about real achievements. Vivian wiped at her eyes, smearing mascara further across her cheeks. That was different. I was trying to help you aim higher. By belittling my accomplishments? By making sure mom and dad never saw my success? By spreading rumors about financial troubles I never had? I'm your sister, she cried, as if that explained everything. Yes, you are, I said quietly. And for 25 years, I watched you succeed while you made sure everyone saw me fail. Now you get to watch me succeed. Sarah gestured toward the house. Ms. Foster, the contractors need your input on the renovation plans. I turned to go, then paused. You know what's ironic, Vivian? If you'd ever bothered to actually be a sister instead of a competitor, we could have done amazing things together. Please, she whispered, don't do this. Ryan's left me. I've got nothing left. I stopped, feeling the weight of her words. This wasn't how I'd imagined victory would feel. In my fantasies, Vivian's downfall had been satisfying, vindicating. The reality was just sad. What do you mean? Richard's left you. He found out about everything, the credit cards, the shopping, the lies about our investments. She pulled off her sunglasses completely, revealing red-rimmed eyes. He's staying at his brother's house. Are you happy now? I wasn't. Not at all. Flashback childhood, Mom. Ellen broke my doll. 6-year-old Vivian's wail echoed through our childhood home. I didn't. I protested, but at 4, my words carried less weight. My mother rushed in, scooping up Vivian and her broken doll. Oh, sweetheart, don't cry. We'll fix it. Ellen's mean. Vivian sobbed into her mother's shoulder, shooting me a look of triumph through her tears. Ellen, how could you? My mother's disappointment stung worse than any punishment. But no excuses. Go to your room. Later, I heard Vivian confessing to our grandmother that she had broken the doll herself while trying to make it do gymnastics. But Ellen looked so sad when Mom blamed her. She explained, I didn't want to make it worse by saying it was me. Even then, Vivian knew how to turn situations to her advantage, how to appear both victim and hero. And even then, I learned to accept blame, to fade into the background, to let her shine. That pattern continued through our school years. Vivian was the outgoing one, the popular one. I was studious, reserved. When she struggled academically, our parents hired tutors. When I excelled, it was expected. When she won class president, there were celebrations. When I made the honor roll, there were nods of approval. Why can't you be more like your sister? Became the unspoken question hanging over my achievements. Not because they were insufficient, but because they were different. Vivian commanded rooms. I connected with individuals. She sought spotlight. I sought purpose. By the time we reached adulthood, our roles were firmly established. Vivian was the star, the one destined for great things. I was the sensible one, the safe one, the one who would never surprise anyone. No wonder she never saw me as competition. In her mind, in all their minds, I never had been. Meeting with Richard, Brian was already at the coffee shop when I arrived, looking exhausted in a wrinkled suit. Thanks for coming, he said as I sat down. I know things are messy right now. That's one word for it. He pulled out a folder. You need to see these before you make any decisions about the property. Inside were credit card statements, loan documents, and bank records, all with Vivian's name. She's underwater, Richard said quietly. The designer clothes, the fancy cars, the image she created. It's all debt. She was counting on that house to fix everything. She was going to use it as collateral for a loan to pay off the credit cards. When that fell through, he ran a hand through his hair. I found out she'd been forging my signature on loan applications. My coffee went cold as I flipped through the documents. The numbers were staggering. Why are you showing me this? I asked, though I already knew the answer. Because she's not just destroying herself, she's dragging your parents into it. They're talking about taking out a second mortgage to help her. I closed the folder, suddenly weary. This isn't what I wanted. I just wanted them to see me, to recognize that I'm not a failure. I didn't want to destroy her. Richard gave me a sad smile. I know. Vivian's always been her own worst enemy. She's spent her whole life trying to be special, to stand out. Do you know why? I shook my head. Your father once told her, when she was about 8, that she was his extraordinary girl, while you were his steady one. She built her entire identity around being extraordinary, whatever the cost. And I built mine around being steady, I realized. We both became exactly what they expected of us. With one exception, Richard said, tapping the folder. You actually succeeded where it counts. My phone buzzed, a text from Thomas. Family emergency meeting at your parents' house tonight. Vivian's idea. You coming? I showed Richard the message. She doesn't know I'm meeting you, he said. But Ellen, be careful. She's desperate. Resolution at the beach house. 2 weeks later, I stood in the newly renovated living room of the beach house, watching the sunset through floor-to-ceiling windows. The sound of cars pulling up the driveway broke the peaceful moment. They're here, Michael said, adjusting the appetizer trays we'd set out. Ready? Thomas asked, handing me a glass of champagne. I nodded. Time to end this. The doorbell rang. I'd invited the entire family, parents, Vivian, Richard, cousins, everyone, for what they thought was a housewarming party. They didn't know about the papers sitting on my desk, waiting to be signed. My mother entered first, clutching her purse like a shield. Oh, Ellen, it's beautiful. The renovations turned out perfectly. I watched Vivian's face as she took in the space that could have been hers. Richard hung back, avoiding his wife's gaze. They still weren't living together, according to Thomas's updates. Well, my father said, clearing his throat, this is quite something. It is, isn't it? I gestured for everyone to sit. But before we celebrate, there's something we need to discuss. Vivian's head snapped up. You're selling to the developers? Not exactly. I picked up the folder from my desk. I've created a trust. A what? My mother asked. A family trust. The house will be its main asset. I started distributing copies of the paperwork. I'm transferring ownership to the trust with specific conditions. Richard leaned forward, reading quickly. This is unexpected. The house will serve as a family vacation property, available to all of us on a rotating schedule. I watched their faces as they read. But there are rules. Rules? Vivian's voice was small. First, the house can never be used as collateral for loans or sold without unanimous consent from all trust members. Second, usage rights are dependent on financial responsibility, meaning anyone who wants to use the house must provide proof of financial stability. No outstanding debts, no legal issues, no hidden credit cards. Vivian's hands trembled as she held the papers. Additionally, I continued, I've arranged for financial counseling services, fully paid for by the trust, available to any family member who needs it. Ellen, my mother started, tears in her eyes. I'm not finished. The trust also includes a scholarship fund for future generations of our family, specifically for medical and nursing education. The room was silent as my words sank in. Why? Vivian finally asked. For 25 years, I'd waited for an acknowledgement, for validation, for them to see me as I truly was. I channeled that hurt into a revenge plot worthy of my sister's dramatic flair. But standing here now, looking at my broken family, I realized something important. I didn't need their validation anymore. I had proven myself to the only person who really mattered to me. Because despite everything, we're family, I said, and families should lift each other up, not tear each other down. I met Vivian's eyes. But they also shouldn't enable destructive behavior. The counseling services, Richard said slowly. That's your condition for Vivian, isn't it? I nodded. Complete the program, get your finances in order, and you'll have equal access to the house. The same rules apply to everyone. And Mom and Dad's mortgage? Vivian asked. Will remain their responsibility, but the trust includes provisions for emergency family assistance with strict oversight and repayment terms. My father stood up abruptly. I need some air. Dad, wait. Please let me speak. He turned to face me. All these years, I thought. He shook his head. I was wrong about you, Ellen. So wrong. We both were, my mother added, wiping her eyes. Vivian hadn't moved, still staring at the papers. I don't deserve this. No, you don't, I agreed. But that's not the point. The point is giving all of us, a chance to do better. The financial counseling, she said quietly. When can I start? First session is scheduled for Monday if you want it. She nodded, unable to speak. There's one more thing, I said, pulling out a final document. Richard, this is for you. He took the paper, eyes widening. This is evidence of the forged loan applications. What you do with it is up to you. The room held its breath as Richard stared at the document, then at Vivian. Finally, he tore it in half. Everyone deserves a second chance, he said, but only one. Vivian burst into tears, real ones this time, not the calculated sobs I'd grown up with. Now, I said, raising my glass, who's ready for that housewarming party? As the tension broke and people began to mingle, Thomas pulled me aside. You planned this all along, didn't you? The trust, the counseling, everything. I shook my head, watching my family move through the space, my mother examining the kitchen, my father out on the deck, Vivian and Richard talking quietly in a corner. No, I admitted. I planned the revenge. The redemption came later. What changed? I thought about the moment on the beach with Vivian, seeing her broken and desperate. I thought about the 25 years of competition that had shaped us both, the parents who had inadvertently created our rivalry, the roles we'd been assigned and accepted. I realized I was becoming exactly what I hated about her, someone whose self-worth depended on others' validation, someone who needed to win to feel valuable. And now, I smiled, feeling lighter than I had in decades. Now I know that true success isn't about houses or titles or showing up your sister. It's about being at peace with who you are. Through the windows, the sun had set completely, leaving the beach in darkness, but inside the house glowed with new beginnings and second chances. Not the revenge I'd planned, but perhaps the victory we all needed. Epilogue 1 year later. The autumn breeze carried the scent of salt and coffee as I sat on the beach house deck, reviewing financial reports. The trust's first quarterly meeting was about to begin, and I wanted everything perfect. Need help with those? Vivian appeared, carrying 2 mugs. She looked different, simpler, but somehow more genuine, without the designer facade. Thanks. I accepted the coffee. How was your counseling session? Good. Hard, but good. Richard and I are talking about moving back in together, if we stick to our new budget. That's great, Viv. It's weird, actually living within my means, but also freeing. She gestured at the papers. How's the trust doing? See for yourself. I handed her the reports. Your credit score is up 50 points. 62. Actually, she smiled slightly. I check it obsessively now. Part of the recovery program. The sliding door opened as our parents arrived, followed by Thomas and Michael. Ready for the first official meeting? Thomas asked, setting up his laptop as the trust designated record keeper. He'd taken his role seriously. Before we start, my father said, I have something to say. Everyone turned to look at him. He pulled out an envelope. The bank approved our refinancing application. We're not taking the second mortgage. Dad. No, Ellen, you were right. We can't keep enabling destructive patterns. He looked at Vivian, for any of us. Vivian nodded, blinking back tears. Now, my mother said, pulling out her own folder, shall we discuss the holiday rotation schedule? As the meeting continued, I watched my family, really watched them. My parents learning to treat their daughters equally, Richard and Vivian rebuilding their marriage on honesty instead of appearances, Thomas taking his role as family mediator seriously. Last item, Thomas announced. The trust mission statement needs approval. I stood up. I have a suggestion. Everyone turned to listen. The foster family trust exists not to create wealth, but to create value, not to enable, but to empower, not to divide, but to unite. Through financial responsibility, educational opportunity, and shared experiences, we build a legacy of strength, wisdom, and genuine success. Vivian wiped her eyes. It's perfect. As the others nodded in agreement, I looked out at the ocean. The waves rolled in steadily, unchanging yet always changing, like family itself. Well, Michael said, raising his coffee mug. To genuine success. To family, I corrected, raising mine. To both, Vivian added softly, because sometimes they're the same thing. The sun broke through the clouds, warming the deck as we clinked our mugs together. The sound mixed with the waves, creating a perfect harmony of endings and beginnings, of lessons learned and bridges rebuilt. 25 years of rivalry had led us here, not to the dramatic conclusion I'd once imagined, but to something far more valuable, understanding. As I watched Vivian laugh at something Richard said, I realized she seemed lighter too, freed from the exhausting burden of constantly proving her worth. My father approached, resting his hands on the deck railing beside me as the others continued their discussions inside. I never told you this, he said, his voice gruff with emotion. But the day you graduated nursing school, one of the doctors came up to me. He said, your daughter is going to change lives in ways most of us only dream about. I was too blind to see it then. I swallowed the lump in my throat. It's okay, Dad. No, it's not. But I'm trying to do better. He turned to face me. You know, your mother and I always thought Vivian needed more of our attention. She was so dramatic, so needy. You were a rock, Ellen. We took that for granted. We all played our parts, I said. I could have spoken up more, pushed back. Would we have listened? He asked honestly. I had no answer for that. Instead, I stared out at the horizon where the ocean met the sky in a seamless line. I'm proud of you, he said finally. Not because of this house or your job or anything you've achieved, though God knows there's plenty there to be proud of. I'm proud of who you are. The words I'd waited a lifetime to hear. Yet now, hearing them, I realized they held less power than I'd imagined. Somewhere along the way, I'd learned to be proud of myself, and that mattered more. Thomas called from inside that they were ready to finalize the trust documents. As my father and I turned to go in, I caught sight of a newspaper on the side table, open to the healthcare section. There, under medical innovation, was a photo of me and my trauma team, highlighting our new emergency protocol that had reduced critical response time by 30%. Vivian picked it up, studying the photo with a genuine smile. "My little sister," she said, but this time there was no condescension in her voice, only pride. "Not so little anymore," my father added. As we rejoined the others, I realized that revenge might have been my motivation, but redemption was my reward. For all of us. Sometimes the greatest achievement isn't in winning the competition, but in changing the game entirely. For 25 years, Vivian and I had been playing by rules that diminished us both. Now we were writing new ones, together. The pages of our family's story weren't being erased, they were being understood, acknowledged, and gently turned to a fresh chapter. Not a perfect ending, but a more honest beginning. And that, I thought as I took my seat at the head of the table, was the smartest thing of all. For 25 years, I've been the invisible daughter, the shadow sister, the accountant no one listens to. But not today. My voice doesn't waver as I stand at the head of Foster Real Estate's gleaming mahogany conference table. The financial documents in my hands are no longer trembling, unlike my insides. 8 pairs of eyes stare back at me in stunned silence, my sister Patricia's wide with fury, my parents narrowed in disbelief, and the board members darting between us all, sensing the family drama unfolding before them. As the external auditor assigned to review the company's finances, I've uncovered multiple discrepancies in the accounts. I continue, my professional tone belying the storm inside me. Specifically, I've found evidence of systematic financial misreporting spanning the last 3 fiscal years. Patricia slams her manicured hand on the table. "This is absurd. Mother, father, are you going to let her do this?" My mother, Ellen Foster, touches the pearls at her throat, a nervous habit from her teaching days. My father, Richard, former judge and patriarch of our family, clears his throat with the authoritative rumble that once silenced courtrooms. "Margaret," he says, using my full name as he always does when displeased. "This is neither the time nor the place." "It's exactly the time and place," I interrupt, shocking even myself. I've spent my entire career being ignored and underestimated by this family. I've watched Patricia make reckless decisions that you've endorsed without question. But these numbers don't lie, and neither will I, not anymore. As I lay out the evidence, the falsified property valuations, the hidden losses, the tax irregularities, I see the color drain from my sister's face. For the first time in my life, I'm not backing down, not apologizing for my expertise, not making myself smaller to let Patricia shine. Behind me stands Catherine Bradley, senior partner at Bradley and Associates, one of New York's most prestigious accounting firms. Her presence gives weight to my words, her reputation lending credibility to my findings. "I've had enough of this charade," Patricia hisses, standing up. "Maggie's always been jealous of me. This is nothing but spite." And there it is, the familiar script, the one where I'm cast as the bitter, jealous sister. But something has changed in me. The lock has broken, the door has opened, and I'm finally stepping through. "No, Patricia," I say, my voice steady and clear. "This isn't about jealousy. It's about integrity. Something you wouldn't recognize if it filed a tax return. How did I get here? How did quiet, accommodating Maggie Foster finally find her voice? It didn't happen overnight. It took 25 years of silence, and then, finally, one missing document too many. 2 weeks earlier, Grayson Accounting. My cubicle at Grayson Accounting hadn't changed in 23 years. Same beige walls, same flickering fluorescent light that no one ever fixed, same view of the parking lot. At 52, I'd long accepted my place in the world, mid-level accountant, reliable but unremarkable, forever destined to be overlooked. As I sorted through the paperwork for Foster Real Estate's annual audit, I couldn't find the most recent property acquisition reports. Again. This happened every year, critical documents mysteriously missing, delaying my work, making me look incompetent. Running late on the Foster audit? Daniel Garcia paused by my desk, coffee in hand. At 53, Daniel was one of the few colleagues who saw me or really saw me. Perhaps because as a Latino in a predominantly white accounting firm, he knew what it felt like to be overlooked. Patricia's forgotten to include the Westridge Mall acquisition documents. I sighed. I'll have to call her again. Your sister does this every year, Daniel said, leaning against my cubicle wall. You know it's deliberate, right? I did know, but acknowledging it meant confronting a lifetime of family dynamics I wasn't ready to face. It's just Patricia being Patricia, I said, reaching for my phone. Maggie, Daniel said softly, when are you going to stop making excuses for them? I had no answer. The truth was, I'd been making excuses for my family my entire life. Flashback University of Pennsylvania, 1991. Are you sure about this, Margaret? Professor Jenkins peered at me over her glasses. Wharton MBA graduates with your GPA get offers from the top firms in New York, Chicago, London. Grayson Accounting in Westchester is. Well, it's a significant step down. I clutched the acceptance letter in my hand. I'd already turned down offers from Price Waterhouse and Goldman Sachs. My mother's illness. I need to be close to home. What I didn't say was that Ellen Foster's illness had mysteriously appeared the moment I'd mentioned moving to New York. That my father had called, his judicial voice somber, to remind me of family obligations. That Patricia, who dropped out of college to find herself, was now being groomed to take over the family real estate business while I was expected to stay close, be practical, support from the sidelines. Your talents will be wasted there, Professor Jenkins warned. But I'd made my choice. Family first. Always family first. Present day, Foster Estate. Margaret, darling, come in. My mother's voice carried the same lilting cadence it had when she taught kindergarten, before she married into the Foster fortune. At 78, she still maintained perfect posture, perfect hair, perfect appearances. The Foster family estate hadn't changed since my childhood, the same imposing colonial architecture, the same manicured gardens, the same oppressive weight of expectations. Mother, I need to talk to you about the missing documents for the audit, I began, following her into the sunroom where afternoon tea was already laid out. Oh, that. Patricia mentioned you were fussing about some paperwork. She's handling it, dear. Mother poured tea into delicate cups that had belonged to her grandmother. You know how busy she is with the Westridge development. It's not fussing, Mother. It's my job. Without those documents, I can't complete the audit. You always were so particular about details. She passed me a cup, her diamond bracelet catching the light. Patricia has a vision for the company. She sees the big picture. That's why your father was right to choose her as CEO. The familiar sting of the comparison settled in my chest. Patricia with her vision. Patricia with her charisma. Patricia, 4 years younger, but always steps ahead in our parents' eyes. Mother, this isn't about vision. It's about legal compliance. The Westridge Mall acquisition numbers don't add up, and I can't sign off on, Margaret. My father's voice came from the doorway, authoritative as ever despite his 80 years. Your mother doesn't need to be troubled with business matters. Dad, these aren't just business matters. There are serious discrepancies in. Patricia explained everything to me yesterday, he interrupted, lowering himself into his favorite armchair. The discrepancies you're seeing are due to a complex leveraging strategy she's implemented. Quite innovative, actually. The dismissal was as familiar as it was infuriating. I'd graduated summa cum laude from Wharton. I had 25 years of accounting experience. But in this house, Patricia's community college marketing class and natural business instinct would always trump my expertise. Dad, with all due respect, what Patricia described to you sounds like financial misrepresentation. It could be illegal. Mother gasped, her hand fluttering to her pearls. Margaret, how could you suggest such a thing about your sister? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm stating a professional opinion based on the financial data I've reviewed. Father fixed me with the stern gaze that had intimidated countless defendants in his courtroom. Patricia has brought this company into the modern era. The Foster name is respected throughout the state because of her leadership. I won't have you questioning her methods out of some professional jealousy. There it was again. Jealousy. The label they'd pinned on me since childhood whenever I dared to question Patricia's preferential treatment. It's not jealousy, Dad. It's concern. As the accountant responsible for auditing the company's finances, I have a legal and ethical obligation to. Oh, Maggie's here. Patricia's voice rang through the hallway before she appeared in the doorway, immaculately dressed in a designer suit, her blonde hair perfectly styled. At 48, she still commanded attention the moment she entered a room. I thought I heard my big sister's voice. Always so serious. She swooped in to kiss our mother's cheek, then perched on the arm of our father's chair like she used to as a child. Are you bothering Mom and Dad with boring accounting talk again? Actually, I was asking about the Westridge Mall acquisition documents you were supposed to send me last week. Patricia waved a dismissive hand. I told Johnson to handle that. He hasn't sent them yet? That man is useless. I'll fire him tomorrow. Patricia, that would be the third CFO you fired this year, I pointed out. Because I demand excellence, Maggie. Something you'd understand if you ever left that little accounting firm of yours. She turned to our parents. Did I tell you about the charity gala I'm organizing? The governor's wife is on the committee. And just like that, the conversation shifted. My concerns dismissed, my professional judgment ignored, while Patricia regaled our parents with stories of her social triumphs. The same pattern that had played out my entire life. Later, as I was leaving, Patricia followed me to my car. Maggie, about those documents. There might be a few irregularities in the reporting. I turned to face her. What kind of irregularities? Her perfect smile didn't reach her eyes. Nothing serious. Just some creative accounting to make the quarterly numbers look better for the investors. I need you to overlook it, just this once. Patricia, that's financial fraud. I can't overlook it. Don't be so dramatic. She placed a manicured hand on my arm. It's just business. Everyone does it. I don't. Oh, right. Perfect Maggie with her perfect ethics. The familiar mocking tone emerged. Always so uptight, so righteous. This isn't about being righteous. It's about breaking the law. It's about family loyalty. Her voice hardened. Dad put everything into this company. His reputation, his life savings. If there's even a hint of financial irregularity, it would destroy him. The manipulation was so familiar it almost worked automatically. Family loyalty. The trump card they'd always play to keep me in line. If you really cared about Dad's reputation, you wouldn't be putting it at risk with fraudulent accounting. Patricia's mask slipped for a moment, revealing the cold calculation beneath. Just sign off on the audit, Maggie. For once in your life, be a team player. As I drove away, her words echoed in my mind. Team player. As if I hadn't sacrificed my entire career, my dreams, my identity to be part of their team. As if I hadn't spent 25 years being the reliable daughter, the supportive sister, the family accountant who never questioned too deeply. Something shifted inside me that day. A quiet realization that loyalty shouldn't require self-erasure. That family shouldn't mean fraud. That maybe, after all these years, it was time to stop playing by their rules. Grace and accounting a late night. The office was deserted at 10 p.m. I'd told the night security guard I was working late on tax returns, but in reality, I was digging deeper into Foster Real Estate's finances than I ever had before. Without the missing documents Patricia had been withholding, I'd had to get creative. I cross-referenced bank statements, property records, tax filings, piecing together the puzzle that my sister had tried to obscure. What I found made my stomach turn. Systematic misrepresentation of property values. Hidden losses disguised as profits. Tax fraud that could result in criminal charges. My sister wasn't just creative accounting, she was driving our family's 90-year-old business straight toward disaster, all while maintaining the illusion of success. As I stared at the spreadsheets confirming my worst suspicions, memories flooded back. Patricia accidentally spilling coffee on my college application to Wharton, making me miss the deadline and forcing me to apply late. Patricia telling her parents I declined a job offer from Goldman Sachs because I didn't think I could handle the pressure, when in truth I turned it down because mother had claimed she couldn't bear to have me move so far away. Patricia taking credit for my financial strategies that had saved the family business during the 2008 recession. A pattern of sabotage so consistent, so deliberate that I couldn't ignore it anymore. Maggie, you're still here? Daniel's voice startled me. He stood in the doorway, jacket slung over his shoulder. I forgot my phone and came back to get it. What are you doing? I hesitated, then decided. If there was anyone I could trust, it was Daniel. I'm finding evidence that my sister has been committing financial fraud for years, and I don't know what to do about it. Daniel pulled up a chair beside me, studied the screen, then looked at me with newfound respect. You know exactly what to do. You're just afraid to do it. He was right. I knew the professional ethical requirements. I knew the law. I just didn't know if I could stand up to my family after a lifetime of giving in. What would you do? I asked him. Daniel was quiet for a moment. When I got divorced, my ex-wife told the kids I abandoned them, that I chose my career over family. For years, I tried to be the good guy, never contradicting her story, never fighting back, thinking it was better for the kids if I just absorbed the pain. His eyes met mine. Then one day my daughter asked me why I left them, and I realized that by staying silent, I wasn't protecting anyone, I was just enabling a lie that was hurting all of us. What did you do? I whispered. I told the truth. Simply, calmly, with evidence. It wasn't about revenge. It was about integrity. He nodded at my screen. Your sister is breaking the law. Your parents are enabling her. And you're the only one who can stop it, not to hurt them, but because it's right. In that moment, I saw with perfect clarity the choice before me: continue being the family doormat, or finally stand up for what I knew was right. I need to make a call, I said, reaching for my phone. To who? Catherine Bradley. We work together at university. She runs one of the biggest accounting firms in New York now. I took a deep breath. And I think it's time I asked for her help. Catherine's office, New York. Catherine Bradley hadn't changed much in 30 years, still razor sharp, still direct, still radiating the confidence I'd always admired but never managed to cultivate for myself. So let me get this straight, she said, reviewing the documents I'd brought. Your sister has been systematically falsifying financial records. Your parents are either complicit or willfully ignorant. And you've spent 25 years enabling this dysfunction by looking the other way. Put like that, it sounded pathetic. I winced. I wouldn't say I've been enabling. Wouldn't you? Catherine's piercing gaze hadn't softened with age. Maggie, you were the most brilliant accounting student in our class. You could have been a partner at any firm in the country. Instead, you've spent your career at a small town firm, auditing your family's business and ignoring obvious fraud because. Why? Because they made you believe you owed them that? Her words stung because they were true. I had allowed myself to be diminished, to be used, to be silenced. They're still my family, I said weakly. And you're still a certified public accountant with legal and ethical obligations. Catherine leaned forward. The Maggie Foster I knew at Wharton wouldn't have tolerated this for a minute, let alone decades. That Maggie disappeared a long time ago. Did she? Catherine raised an eyebrow. Or did she just get buried under years of family manipulation? Because the woman who put together this analysis, she tapped my documents, is exactly the brilliant, meticulous professional I remember. I felt something stir inside me, not just anger at my family, but disappointment in myself for allowing this situation to continue for so long. What do you think I should do? Catherine didn't hesitate. Present your findings at the next board meeting. I'll be there to back you up. Once the board members understand their potential liability, they'll have no choice but to act. Patricia will fight back. My parents will support her. Let them. Catherine's confident smile reminded me of the woman I might have become. You have the truth on your side. And from what I can see in these numbers, they have nothing but lies. As I left her office, Catherine called after me. Maggie? For what it's worth, it's not too late to become the accountant, the woman you were meant to be. Ellen Foster's birthday party mother's 79th birthday celebration was exactly the kind of event Patricia excelled at orchestrating, elegant, Instagram perfect, designed to showcase the Foster family's wealth and status. The estate's ballroom was filled with Westchester's elite judges who had served with my father, society matrons who served on charity boards with my mother, business associates who partnered with Patricia. I stood in a corner, nursing a glass of champagne, watching Patricia hold court. Margaret, you're looking professional. Helen Whitfield, my mother's oldest friend, approached with the faint distaste she'd always shown toward me. Still at that little accounting firm? Such a shame you never married. A woman your age needs companionship. Before I could respond, Patricia glided over, champagne flute in hand. Aunt Helen, I see you found my serious big sister. Still hiding in corners at parties, Maggie? I'm observing, I said. It's what accountants do. Speaking of accounting, Patricia said, her voice carrying just enough to attract nearby ears. Maggie's been absolutely obsessive about some missing paperwork for the company audit. Called me 6 times in one day. I told her, Maggie, life's too short to spend it buried in spreadsheets. Polite laughter rippled through the small crowd that had gathered. I felt the familiar heat of embarrassment rising in my cheeks. It's not just paperwork, Patricia, I said, working to keep my voice even. It's legally required financial documentation. See what I mean? Patricia rolled her eyes dramatically. Always so serious. This is why we never let Maggie plan the parties. More laughter. Helen patted my arm with condescending sympathy. Not everyone can be the fun sister, dear. I watched as Patricia moved on to the next group, trailing admiration in her wake. The perfect daughter. The successful businesswoman. The charismatic center of attention. 25 years of this. 25 years of being the punchline, the afterthought, the sister who needed to lighten up. As I made my way to the powder room for a moment of peace, I overheard Patricia's voice from my father's study. Of course the Westridge numbers are solid, Daddy. Maggie's just being difficult because she's jealous. She's always resented my success. Remember how obsessed she was when you made me CO instead of her? I froze outside the door, my heart pounding. I never wanted to be CEO, I whispered to myself. I had never once expressed interest in running the family business. In fact, I deliberately stayed away, establishing my career at Grayson specifically to avoid working directly under my family. Your sister has always been rigid in her thinking. My father's voice, so full of the dismissive tolerance they'd always shown toward me. She doesn't understand the realities of modern business. She's threatening to bring up her concerns at the board meeting next week, Patricia continued. You need to stop her, Daddy. She could ruin everything we've built. Leave your sister to me, my father assured her. She'll fall in line. She always does. The absolute certainty in his voice, the complete confidence that I would once again sacrifice my integrity to maintain family peace, was like a bucket of cold water. They didn't just take me for granted. They didn't just dismiss my expertise. They counted on my compliance as an essential component of their deception. In that moment, standing outside my father's study in my sensible black dress while the party swirled around me, something crystallized in my soul. I would no longer be the compliant daughter. I would no longer enable their lies. I would no longer diminish myself to maintain their illusions. Later, as guests were leaving, my mother found me on the terrace. Margaret, you barely mingled. Several people commented on how withdrawn you seemed. I had a lot on my mind, Mother. Well, it appeared rude. Patricia put so much effort into this party. She adjusted her pearls, a sign she was building to a complaint. And what's this I hear about you questioning Patricia's business decisions to the board members? Garrett Williams mentioned you called him with concerns about the company finances. I called him because he's the head of the audit committee, and I found evidence of financial misconduct that he needs to be aware of. Mother's face tightened with displeasure. This family has always handled its affairs privately. Your father will be very disappointed to hear you've been airing our dirty laundry. It's not dirty laundry, Mother. It's fraud. Margaret Elizabeth Foster. She lowered her voice to a harsh whisper. You will not use such language about your sister. Patricia has worked tirelessly to grow this company. If she's taken some creative liberties with the accounting, I'm sure she had good reasons. In that moment, I realized my mother wasn't just enabling Patricia, she was actively complicit. She knew. She had always known. The board meeting is Tuesday, I said quietly. I'll be presenting my findings with supporting analysis from Catherine Bradley's firm. Catherine Bradley? Mother's eyes widened. Your college friend who runs that big New York firm? Margaret, what have you done? What I should have done years ago, Mother. My job. The boardroom present, and so here I stand, at the head of the conference table, watching as the carefully constructed illusion of Foster real estate begins to crumble. I've laid out the evidence methodically, irrefutably. Catherine stands beside me, her presence lending institutional credibility to my findings. This is a witch hunt, Patricia hisses, but I can see the fear behind her anger. Maggie has always been jealous of me. She's trying to destroy this company out of spite. I'm trying to save what's left of it, I correct her. And my name is Margaret. The board members exchange troubled glances. These aren't just family concerns anymore. I've demonstrated their potential personal liability if they ignore these findings. Judge Foster, says Williams, addressing my father. In light of these discrepancies, I move that we suspend Patricia Foster from her duties as CEO pending a full investigation. This is outrageous. My father's face is flushed with anger. I've known most of you for decades. You would take the word of an accountant over a Foster? I am a Foster, I remind him quietly. You just never valued what I brought to the family. Margaret, my mother pleads, tears threatening to spill. Think about what you're doing to our family name. I'm thinking about the law, Mother. About ethics. About truth. I gather my papers, my hands steady now. Things this family should have valued all along. The vote is taken. Patricia is suspended. An independent investigation will be launched. My parents sit in stunned silence as their carefully constructed world shifts on its axis. As the board members file out, Catherine touches my shoulder. You did it, Maggie. How does it feel? I consider the question. There's no triumph, no vindication, just a quiet certainty that I've finally done what's right. It feels like freedom. Patricia confronts me in the hallway, her perfect makeup streaked with tears of rage. You've ruined everything. Are you happy now? No, Patricia, I'm not happy. I'm just finally being honest. There's a difference. My father appears behind her, looking suddenly older, diminished. Margaret, come to the house tonight. We can discuss how to manage this situation. Keep it in the family. The old Margaret would have agreed, would have compromised, would have found a way to protect them from the consequences of their actions. But she's gone. There's nothing to discuss. The investigation will proceed. Whatever happens next is out of my hands. Then you're no longer welcome in our home, he says, his judicial voice attempting authority but achieving only pettiness. I know. I meet his gaze steadily. I made my choice. As Catherine and I walk toward the elevators, she glances back at my family, Patricia sobbing dramatically into her mother's shoulder, my father staring after me with a mixture of anger and disbelief. Where will you go now? Catherine asks. I take a deep breath, feeling the weight of 25 years lifting from my shoulders. I don't know. For the first time in my life, that's actually exciting. She smiles, pressing the elevator button. You know, my firm could use someone with your expertise and your integrity. A job offer? After I just imploded my family's company? Because you just chose integrity over family pressure. That's exactly the kind of accountant I want on my team. She hands me her card. Think about it. New York could use a Margaret Foster who finally knows her own worth. The elevator doors open, offering a path forward, away from the world where I was always second best, always overlooked, always silenced. I'll think about it, I promise, stepping inside. Behind me, I can hear Patricia's voice rising in another dramatic outburst, my parents' soothing responses. Their familiar dynamic playing out one more time, but no longer including me. Catherine presses the lobby button. Welcome to the rest of your life, Margaret. And for the first time in as long as I can remember, I smile with genuine hope. Thank you. I think I'm going to like it here. 6 months later in New York City, the view from my office at Bradley and Associates stretches across the Manhattan skyline, a daily reminder of how far I've come literally and figuratively from the beige cubicle at Grayson Accounting. Margaret, your 3 o'clock is here, my assistant announces over the intercom. Send them in, please. The door opens to reveal a nervous-looking woman in her early 50s. I recognize the signs immediately, the carefully maintained professional demeanor barely concealing years of diminishment and doubt. Ms. Foster? I'm Janet Wilkins. She extends her hand. Thank you for seeing me. Please, call me Margaret. I gesture to the chair across from my desk. Catherine mentioned you're interested in joining our forensic accounting team. Yes, though I'm not sure I'm qualified. Janet smooths her skirt, eyes darting around my impressive office. I've spent the last 20 years at a small regional firm, and let me guess, I interrupt gently. Someone along the way convinced you that was all you were capable of? That your dreams of something bigger were unrealistic or selfish? Her startled expression tells me I've hit the mark. How did you know? I smile, thinking of my journey over the past 6 months. The investigation that revealed the full extent of Patricia's fraud. My parents' social disgrace when the story hit the local papers. My sister's tearful television interview blaming me for destroying the family legacy. And finally, my decision to accept Catherine's offer and move to New York. Let's just say I understand what it's like to outgrow the box others have placed you in. I pick up her resume. Now, tell me about this fraud detection algorithm you developed. It looks impressive. As Janet begins to describe her work, growing more animated and confident with each sentence, I feel a familiar vibration in my desk drawer. My personal phone, with a message from Daniel. I'll check it later. Right now, I have more important things to do, like helping another woman discover her true value, just as I discovered mine. Some might say I destroyed my family. I prefer to think I finally created myself. And in the end, that has made all the difference.